Good evening, everybody. I know you are tired of seeing my face today, but I promise this is for the last time. Oh my goodness, it's been a great day. I'll just say that. But welcome to episode 3 of State of the Franchise. Today we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns, and who better to talk about the Cleveland Browns than two of the biggest Browns fans in the community, Mr. Bobby G, and of course Ed in Columbus as well.
What up, what up?
How are you guys doing today?
Good. I see Ed there's job interview ready.
You know what? Hey, this used to be a joke that we used to have with the head coaches in Cleveland, especially since 1999. Well, you never know when they're on the chopping block. So got to be ready. Because, as a Browns fan, how many times, Bobby Cheese, you can probably relate to you sitting on the couch or whatever, watching the game at a bar or whatever, and you see a dumb move by a Browns head coach and like, you know what, I could do better than this. I always say this, Madden stoner dude sitting on his mom's couch 1:30 in the morning playing Madden, probably eating his Taco Bell, could probably make some better timeout decisions than some of the Browns coaches have since 99. So we'll just leave it at that. So I'll be job interview ready. I can't wait. This is going to be a great show with Bobby G and Allen, and let's rock and roll here.
I was going to say it's either going to be for Browns head coach or Browns quarterback, one of the two.
There you go.
I don't know about that arm. I'm not Uncle Rico, so I don't know if I have that arm.
I guess that's a good place to start. I mean, we know what the history of quarterbacking in Cleveland has been like since '99. I mean, for crying out loud, they made a freaking jersey about that whole thing. It's like, let's just keep adding names to the list. Is Deshaun Watson going to be the guy to finally break that trend?
I say yes. Over the last couple of weeks, I know y'all have heard me use this example because I'm like literally just exhausted and tired of, like, Peyton Manning broke his neck. Did we question whether he was going to come back okay? No, they made the Denver Broncos Super Bowl favorites. Tom Brady broke his leg. Did we question whether he was going to be okay when he came back? No, the Patriots are Super Bowl favorites. Rookies come into this league every year, and we say that they're going to be superstars. Would you rather have Deshaun Watson as your QB or one of the top QBs taken in this year's draft? I think that's Deshaun Watson. So, like, let's stop pretending like this dude wasn't an elite QB in this league. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years, 3 years, 3 straight Pro Bowls. Like, let's stop pretending Deshaun Watson is who he is. He's going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. And how you feel?
I love that answer, Bobby G, because you're absolutely right. If you're a GM in the league, and people talk about the contract and everything, and what the Haslams did to have to get him to Cleveland. So what? You look at now with the new contracts going out, the average with Jalen Hurts and everything. He's like, the 7th highest rated per year now when it comes to his contract. So I'm sick of the contract. When they say, it's fully guaranteed, we know he's going to be the quarterback for the next 4 years. So who cares that it's fully guaranteed? Even if it wasn't fully guaranteed, he would still play there for the 4 years anyways. That's a silly argument. But let's talk about Deshaun Watson. And a lot of people say, well, he's got the rust the last 6 games of last year. Look, I think Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson, I think they get along. I think, they brought in the weapons this year when it comes to look at Elijah Moore and then Marquise Goodwin from Seattle. They're going to space it out more, going to be less running when it comes to, trying to be with the Kareem Hunt kind of. I think they're going to be more traditional when they do run the ball, but most of the offense is going to be let Deshaun Watson work with the talent and the wide receivers that he does have now. And I think this, Dabo Swinney said he was the Michael Jordan of football when he's on the field. He beat Alabama. He didn't just forget how to play football. Like Bobby G said, a Pro Bowler for 3 straight years. Look, I think there's some rust that needed to be taken off last year. I'm glad he played those 6 games. Right. I'm not even really that upset that, he was rusty or didn't look quite as good. I think it's an adjustment period for Stefanski and him getting the right offense. Now he's got the right weapons to run that offense. And I can't wait for the 2023 season. And you know what, even if he's not the typical franchise quarterback or a Hall of Fame quarterback, he is definitely a lot better than what we've had since 99. To your point, Allen, I don't think his name will be added to any said jersey. So I think that curse is gone. And I think he will be a quarterback for more than, multiple seasons, which I can't say the same since 99 in Cleveland. So yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll with Deshaun Watson in 2023.
I will point this out. He's one of those quarterbacks where you don't need to run play action to have success. I feel like Baker was one of those guys that, and you even saw it at Oklahoma. When they ran play action, 90% of the time Baker had his most success. Yes, he could improvise, go do this and that, but most of the success Baker Mayfield had, not just in Cleveland, but at Oklahoma, Texas Tech, where have you, was off of play action. And that's kind of been the thing for most Browns quarterbacks. It's like if you don't run play action, that's usually when Watson doesn't need that. He has the talent, he has the arm strength, he can run it on his own. You don't need to run play action with Deshaun Watson because he's athletic enough to where he can straight drop back, look left, look right, make the good throw over the middle or what have you. And like you guys said, he's got more weapons to play around with now. So Elijah Moore was a huge piece, that they brought in from the Jets. So he's one of those.
IQ wise, he's one of the smartest QBs in the league. If anybody has never seen, go to YouTube. You can YouTube it. Watch him break down the play to a reporter and ask him a question when he was in Houston. You Google. I mean, it's like one of the greatest. I've watched it like 20 times. Just that, like I like football that much. But just watching him break down the plays and the different scenarios and the reactions. If the safety does this, I'm going to do that. Like it's beautiful to watch.
When the Haslam's went down to go get him and they got in their plane and they decided to make the push for Deshaun Watson, when they met, it was Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson. They said for an hour going over what the offense was going to look like and running plays. So, and I mean, we all know Kevin Stefanski is very cerebral. And one thing about Deshaun Watson, if he's that, unlike some quarterbacks in the league, we won't mention the quarterback, Kyler Murray. There's some quarterbacks out there that don't put in the time, in the film room. And I think Deshaun Watson, I think the best part about Deshaun Watson is he is, it's not about franchise quarterback. It's about being a complete quarterback. And to your point, Alan, he can run without doing play action, but also like he's in the film room, to Bobby G's point. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks when it comes to, knowing the plays and being able to regurgitate, to smart reporters after the game when they're trying to put one over on him. And he, puts back the play and puts them in their place. I like that. But also too, talking about, with the team, takes them down to Puerto Rico, whatever. Yeah. And, I know Baker had his camps and Colt McCoy had his camps, but, it just seems like there's a genuine liking to Deshaun Watson. He came into Cleveland with this, he's a bad guy. But ever since he's been in Cleveland, or even throughout the league, even when he was in Houston, I don't know of anybody that's ever said one bad thing about when they've had an interaction with Deshaun Watson. I see the stuff on Twitter, people smiling. He tells jokes. He's really good with the kids, good with the military. I think he's deep down, he's a good guy. Did he make mistakes? I don't know. That's not for me to. I don't really care at this point. I'm worried about the football side of it, and I'm not trying to diminish some of those aspects, but I think they've been adjudicated and some that haven't will be. And I think, we need to move on, but I like the fact that he's a complete quarterback. And I think he's what Cleveland's been missing all these years. You need an identity. And if your identity is not your quarterback, if you look at the teams that are good, the Bills, you say Josh Allen, you say Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, even now the Eagles, you're finally saying it's starting to be about Jalen Hurts. I know we talk about that defense but it's starting to get to the point when we talk about the Eagles. It is Jalen Hurts, and that's a good thing. When your quarterback's the face of the franchise, those are the teams that have success. And that's the way Cleveland's finally, I think, going to be this year.
Mm-hmm. I would argue and say it's the first time since maybe Bernie Kosar that there's been a legitimacy at the quarterback spot for Cleveland. I mean, I know people wanted to say that about Baker again, got
it
a bad
too
rap
short-lived.
It was short-lived. I mean, I'm sure you guys appreciate, the playoff win, the playoff run, that he helped orchestrate. And again, defense was a big part of that, especially with the turnovers early in that game. That definitely played a big factor in it. But, not since, Bernie Kosar has there been, a lot of hype around the quarterback, much like there is with Deshaun Watson here nowadays. No. So
at least not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I think we had Manziel Mania. Unfortunately, that didn't last too long as well. And
I literally saw that dude out here in Vegas when he was supposed to be at OTA.
Oh, when he was Billy Manziel. Billy.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic because Jerry wanted to draft him that year.
Yeah.
But instead, they took Zach Martin, which ended up being the smart pick. You get a All-Pro Hall of Fame guard over Johnny Manziel. I think we'll take that any day of the week.
Wasn't that the Dak year?
No, 2 years later was Dak. Because it was Zach, it was Martin that year. We drafted them. there was the reach the year after for Travis Frederick. I believe that was either the year after or the year before. That kind of solidified the offensive line. And Dak was 2016. He was a fourth round pick. You know, they were still playing that team like, oh, they're bringing Elliott in, pick number 4. It's still going to be Tony's team. This is going to be Tony Romo's team. Tony Romo got hurt week 3 of the preseason. I think Cam Chancellor got him in the back, into this season, and it was Dak's team from then on out. So
I think, it's funny. It's funny because we're both in the same similar situations when it comes to quarterbacks. Obviously, the Cowboys, you've been looking for that quarterback since Troy Aikman when it comes to winning Super Bowls. Cleveland's been looking for that quarterback since Bernie Kosar when it comes to just being legitimate, being a playoff perennial team. So we both got quarterbacks that need to prove something this year. Dak, obviously, in Dallas, he better prove he can win the Super Bowl and beat Troy Aikman. A little bit higher, lofty expectations there. No pressure, Dak. And Cleveland, obviously, Deshaun Watson, he's got to, be that perennial take it to playoffs because to the Baker arguers and Baker lovers or whatever you want to call them, they do have a point. He did, as much as I wouldn't consider myself a Baker hater, he did lead the Browns to the playoffs, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Alan, in 2020. I mean, that's not to be overlooked. And whether he was a game manager, or just like you said, the defense helped with those turnovers. I mean, he was the quarterback for that year. And I want to say this to the Baker people that on Twitter think that I hate him. I do not hate Baker Mayfield. I'm appreciative of his efforts in Cleveland. But I'm glad that we do have Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski that can realize and see that you need to upgrade that position. I think that Deshaun Watson is definitely that upgrade.
It's kind of funny you mentioned Troy Aikman and Bernie Kosar in the same sentence because it was this year that I found out, oh, hey, guess what? Guess who Troy Aikman's backup was in
1993?
Yeah. Bernie Kosar.
He took a knee in the Super Bowl. Took a knee in the Super Bowl,
and he had
he won him a playoff game.
Had to win him a playoff game that year. So it was this year that I was like, oh, another championship we took from Cleveland. Awesome.
Yep. Bill Belichick trying to be the smartest person in the room. Cut Bernie Kosar because he thought he was done. Turned it over to Vinny Testaverde.
Honestly, in hindsight, Bobby G, that wasn't the wrong thing. But here's the problem with what happened. You don't cut a player during the season. That's very weird what he does. Okay, he did. He could have just benched him. Okay, he didn't have to cut him. And it's funny because Bernie that year earlier, he signed a mega deal. You want to hear this, Alan? This is to show you how things have changed. Okay, the mega deal that he signed before that season started was a 4-year deal, $27 million with $4 million guaranteed. That's all it was. That was considered like a big deal at the time. So when Belichick had cut him, it was even a bigger deal. They worked out some financial arrangements with the Cowboys and went on to do what he did. But I mean, it just shows you the landscape of the league and everything with the dollar amounts that we're seeing. And it's quite a different world now. But one thing hasn't changed. The quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, no matter and in any sport. And I think that, having one, and that's why the pressure goes with them. But I'm interested. Like Bobby G's point, I think Deshaun Watson's the real cat here.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because that was at the very start of the free agency period because that started in '93, I believe, as well.
Yeah, Reggie White was like
Reggie White going to Green Bay. That was the big one. That was the big one that kind of shifted it for Green Bay. And of course, they got far from Atlanta and all that good stuff, and ended up going on that Super Bowl run.
He was almost a Cleveland Brown too, Reggie White. There's a picture in the Cleveland Plain Dealer when Art Modell was luring Reggie White. You know what he did, Art Modell? He bought Reggie White's wife a leather coat, and that was like a big deal at the time to try to lure him. This just shows you how crazy things are.
So you mentioned the running game here with Watson. Obviously we know he can move around a lot. He might take some chances here and there. But now with Kareem Hunt gone, it seems like it's the Nick Chubb show. And rightfully so, because he is definitely, when all is said and done, he's probably the best back in the league. Bar none. I mean, you can maybe not like fantasy wise, because you got guys like Eckler and McCaffrey that can be dynamic. You could go back and forth, McCaffrey and Chubb 1-2, whatever. But he's definitely a top 5 back in the league when he's healthy. And I think he could have a really big season this year since he's going to be the featured back in Cleveland now.
Definitely. Last season, he averaged about 16 carries a game. I think that'll bump up to about 18. 18, 19 a game. Yeah, this will be his first year really being the feature guy, but since we are going to a more pass-heavy offense, I think he'll get most. I think the plan is obviously to build leads, and then in the fourth quarters, here comes Chubb, and I really don't know how that's going to work out, because one thing I used to say about it is since Chubb has been in the league, we want to use the run game in the fourth quarter to try and drain clock, but we really can't. If you really watch the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb has broken like more 40, 50-plus yard touchdown runs in the fourth quarter, final minutes of games than like any back in the league. Or we're trying to run the clock against Houston, 50-yard touchdown. I mean, he ended up running out of bounds at the 1, but he basically broke up a 50-yard touchdown. Last year against the Jets, we're trying to run down the clock, 12-yard touchdown run. I think it's one time against Cincinnati, we're trying to run off the clock, 4-minute drill. Him and Kareem Hunt combined for 4 carries, 55 yards in less than 2 minutes. Like these dudes are so special. We can't even just simply run out the clock with these guys. So we'll see how it works.
I would say, with my deal is, I know you want to go to a pass happy offense, but I would use him early and often. You wear a defense down with Nick Chubb, that's going to open up Deshaun Watson's, arm and, these passing routes, I feel. So, because you got to respect Nick Chubb for what he is. And you're going to get defenses that are going to be crowding the box because they're like, oh, here comes 24. He's going to get the rock first, second down. And that's when you can be like, oh, play it. I know we said Deshaun doesn't have to do play action, but, fake it to Chubb. Oh, yeah. Peoples Jones downfield and the one-on-one. I'll take that any day. Elijah Moore downfield one-on-one. I'll take that any day. Amari Cooper.
I don't mean he's going to get no carries in the first. He'll get his carries, but the bulk of his work will come in when we're leading or second half of games. And like, I was about to say something. I forgot what it was.
Well, I'm looking at some stats here. Now, these are fuzzy math stats because if you look at the inverse of them, it doesn't make sense. So I'm looking at this one stat. The Browns are 17-8 when Chubb gets 20 or more carries, but they're also 19-30-1 when he gets less than 20 carries. I don't know how that equates. I think there's some, but the point of the stats are it does reach one conclusion is that when he gets around 20 carries, the Browns win games. And when you said, 18 to 19 carries, I would like to see the 16 carry average, the 20 carries an average, because the Browns are going to run way more plays. With Deshaun Watson as quarterback, there'll be less 3-and-outs. So the total overall number of plays per game, I think when the percentages to Bobby G's point, I think will still be around if he's carrying 16 a game, because they're going to run more plays. You're going to get maybe 10 to 15 more plays a game. So getting averaging 20 rushes a game, which I still think he should be getting closer to 22 to, he's Nick Chubb, like the Allen's point. But, Stefanski likes to, throw to take the lead and then run to win the game. And to Bobby G's point, which is totally correct as a Browns fan, there's not been many fourth quarters where we can just rely on we need, especially with Jacoby Brissett last year, we needed to keep throwing it because we were down. We needed to, and I think that, Nick Chubb, I will say one thing about Nick Chubb. If you look at his career average, just like Jim Brown, it's almost like even when we were down, say we're down by a touchdown with like 5 minutes to go, he's still averaging like 5.2. It's almost better just to keep giving him the ball. So to Allen's point, he is such a different kind of running back. And I think that because the Browns have saved him over the years, he's not getting the King Henry kind of number of rushes per year. Right. I think this is the year. If this, they always talk about running backs and years 4 and 5. There's a decline after year 5, and like I said, I think Nick Chubb's a different cat, more like Adrian Peterson, where he's going to have a 10-year career and it's going to be great all 10 years. But even if you do subscribe to that theory that he's going to have this decline after year 5, it's getting to the point. This is the year. In the next 2 years, use Nick Chubb. If he's going to average 5.2 yards a carry, you keep feeding him. That's a first down every 2 plays. Let's not be stupid here. And with Deshaun Watson, I don't think that's going to be a problem because, defenses can't just queue up on just stopping the run and or loading the box and bringing, the defensive ends and try to blitz them that way. So I think that the Browns, because they're so diverse in what their offense is, it's going to be hard for a defensive coordinator just to pick on one. You're going to have to be more of a vanilla kind of defense against the Browns, hoping you don't get burned in any specific area and play an overall team game. And I think that finally bodes well for Cleveland.
And plus, you know how coaches are. I'm telling you, at the beginning of the season, Kevin Stefanski's going to be like a kid on Christmas. I got this new toy. I got this new playbook. Watch what I can do. He's gonna, let me show you what I can do. And I think they'll really try and conserve Nick Chubb for the second half of the year when you got the weather coming in. You're gonna have to take your time and do more short to intermediate passing versus taking those shots downfield. I think early in the season you'll see him open it up. Like I say, Nick Chubb he'll maintain that between 16 and 20 carries a game. But obviously when we're winning, that'll bulk up. He'll be well over 20 to conserve leads. But as the season wears on, we get to winter where we're going to Cincinnati, we're going to Buffalo, we're going to as well as playing in our own cold weather stadium. That's when you'll see Nick Chubb's impact felt the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Because running games like that, especially with Nick Chubb, you're definitely going to use him a lot more later on in the season. cold weather games, all that good stuff. It's going to be one of those situations where it's like, you're not going to rely as much on Deshaun and his athleticism late.
Well, I got a question for you, Alan, because I know they say my show, and I love being on here, but I got to ask you a question because as a Browns fan, this relates to your Cowboys. If the Browns sign Zeke Elliott, is there anything left in the tank? And do you see him signing maybe because I'm just a question because Jerome Ford right now is penciled in to be our number 2 guy, okay?
Yeah.
And really, we haven't really seen what he can do. I like, he's got big legs, big thick thighs. He's a strong, north-south runner, and I liked what he did at Cincinnati. But bringing somebody in like Zeke, okay, obviously there's wear on the tires, there's less tread. I get that, but if you can sign him where he's only getting maybe 7 to 10, maybe 5 to 7 carries a game, but those are impactful carries, is it worth the Browns even giving him a look? I think it kind of is actually, but I just wanted your thoughts on that.
He's a good short yardage running back. He's great in third down short yardage. He's when it came to like the 3rd and 1 situation, he was one of the best backs in the league. When it comes to like 3rd and goal, 3rd and whatever, he's a great goal line running back. So he could be like them. And I know Nick Chubb is used for that as well, but he could be that, that thumper to Nick Chubb.
Well, Nick Chubb gets hurt too. I mean, people he may get hurt and be out a game or two. I mean, he doesn't miss a lot of games, but just like any NFL running back, there may be a spot where, okay, if Nick Chubb is banged up, I mean, having Zeke Elliott and Jerome Ford, I mean, who would be our other guy right now, Bobby G? I mean, I don't know right now. Say Nick Chubb's hurt.
Nick Chubb's good. I mean, I honestly like Jerome Ford to take over the spot. I think he gives you more than Kareem Hunt or Zeke could right now.
Okay, I agree.
I'm talking career, but right now. Behind him, the last couple of preseasons, I like John Kelly. Still had him on the practice squad. I loved what he did in the preseason games. I look for him to compete for a roster spot. And then don't forget, we still got Demetric Felton. He's shown some flashes like in that receiver out of the backfield role, kind of looking like a mini Eric Metcalf.
That's what I thought.
He had that one touchdown reception against the Texans a few years ago where it was like, oh, okay, he might be something. But in the comments, I think somebody's mad at you, Ed, man. You're just talking about Baker. You brought one of the Baker Bros out.
Yeah. That would be my cousin Sean, who is on. We do a Let's Talk Oklahoma Sports show together. So he's a Packers fan too. So he's not right in the head.
I much love the Packer Nation. Congratulations on getting the 2025 NFL draft. I mean, good start 20 whatever. Like I said, my last thing on Baker, I'm very thankful for what he did. And the only thing was he has swagger and he'd like to open his mouth, and maybe I do that too. So maybe I'd like to have a beer with Baker. I bet you would be best friends.
As you said, I took a 1-31 team to the playoffs. I make the correction. Actually, the year before we went to the playoffs, we were 6-10.
That is
and previous to that, Baker's rookie year, we finished one game below 500. Yes, yeah. There you go. The other thing I would ask you, you're a Packers fan, so I definitely know you saw the game against Green Bay where Baker threw 4 picks in the first half
on Christmas.
So
Day.
I would ask you, do you think we miss Baker?
He ruined my Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It's a mental withdrawal right now. He's upset about the whole Aaron Rodgers leaving thing. So it's like,
I get it.
Yeah.
So it's that time because Packers fans aren't used to this. They had Brett Favre for 20 some odd years, and they had Aaron Rodgers for 15 some odd
Y'all
years. Now,
spoiled. I'm a Browns fan. Y'all spoiled Packers.
Right, you get 30 years of Hall of Fame
Yeah,
QB play.
Stop it. Stop
30,
30 consecutive years
Yeah.
of Hall of Fame.
30 years of Hall of Fame QBs, but only 2 Super Bowls.
I feel so
Exactly.
bad for you.
Only 2 Super Bowls. That's a little.
At least they both got one.
I mean,
Yeah, they did.
yeah,
Yeah,
It'd be weird. It'd be weird if there were 2 by one and then none by the
none
other.
by the other. Yeah.
it's kind of funny. They both got one before the last time we won one. So,
And
Alan-
that first one, you can thank Cleveland. You're welcome. Desmond Howard, Super Bowl
Yeah.
MVP,
That's
Cleveland born and
96.
raised.
Mm.
Yeah.
So definitely. So the rest of the offense, I mean, you guys mentioned you brought a lot of pieces in, a lot of, some new weapons for Deshaun to play around with. So how you feeling about the rest of your offensive weapons going into this year?
I love it, just like Ed was talking about. I mean, Elijah Moore is a great chess piece. He can actually play inside and outside, so I'm looking for him to be moved around, catch him on some jet sweeps, even maybe coming out of the backfield. Cedric Tillman, I can't lie. During the draft, I kind of wanted Tyler Scott. Cedric Tillman, I was only uncertain of him because he was hurt coming in, and I do not like injuries coming.
You don't like
into the
damaged
NFL.
goods. No damaged
Yeah, it's like buying a used car, computer. You like the deal, but
There's a reason why it's a deal. There's a reason
Right.
why.
I want to say
but
Tillman was one of the guys I had my eye on in this draft. So
yeah.
no, I'm kind of
We'll
upset
see.
we didn't get to him. So
Between Tillman and DPJ, I hope they push each other because, as most Browns fans, I don't think Amari Cooper's coming back after next year unless it's on a super reasonable deal. So look for him to be going. So they're really fighting this year to be next year's number one. Marquise, definitely love that addition. Schwartz time may be up, so look for him to get cut. David Bell's got to take some strides. He's got to show that he can be a true possession receiver because he doesn't have the speed. And of course, I mean, the backfield is with it. Njoku, I need him to step up majorly. A lot of the things that people say about Deshaun Watson is because he was 3-3 when he came back. Remember, he's a David Njoku drop pass away from being 4-2, and people thinking about Deshaun a little bit differently. So I definitely need him to step up, especially since we went out and signed Deshaun's tight end from Texans. So let that be a wake-up call. He's improved his blocking. Now I just need him to improve those hands, which is his primary job. My major concern is I just want to see how quickly the offensive line can gain chemistry. They did not play a lot of games together. Nick Harris was supposed to be the starting center, got hurt in training camp. Pochik stepped up, and he, like Wyatt Teller year previously, kind of turned into a hidden gem.
And they re-signed him too. So
you signed him, you paid him, but now those guys got to come together. Like I said, the two players on notice for me are Njoku and Jedrick Wills.
Oh, I don't.
Bro, I need you to do something. I need you. You got to be steady. I can't watch film and I'm like I paid for the all 22, so I like go back and watch games and all 20. Bro, I can't see you standing around get beat and just watch the guy go. I need more effort. I need you to solidify yourself as the left tackle of the future.
Well, I think I want to talk about the offensive line. Obviously, Jedrick Wills, you mentioned his name. You said it first. I didn't have to. Yikes. Well, the thing about it is I think with Deshaun Watson, I think he'll be better because I think Watson can escape things way better than any quarterback that we've had. But I don't want to hopefully it come to that. I mean, that's not a good thing to say. Your quarterback Houdini back there. So, that makes it that's justifying the offensive line. No, and also to your point, the Browns actually, when they had Deshaun Watson the last 6 games, a lot of people were like, well, Watson doesn't look good. I don't think it's that really. I think Watson and like you said, the offensive line, they have to get in sync with each other. Now, because Watson can extend plays, that offensive line, they can't get downfield because then it's a penalty. Like they have to know where to, they have to stay home now in some aspects, in some areas where they didn't have to. I think having Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, obviously the best in the game. I think, it's a timing issue. Deshaun Watson, makes the game faster, but he also makes it for the offensive linemen. They have to readjust their clocks now, and when it comes to releasing and then going downfield or when they'll be allowed to. So I think to your point, Bobby G, I think you made the best point of the whole show so far when you talked about what you want to see in the first couple games this year when it comes to the offenses. You want to see them get on the same page with each other, but that means being in sync with each other. That means the timing and everything, because really, when the Browns, I really believe if you look at it, their weapons and everything, especially with a Michael Jordan as quarterback as Deshaun Watson, I think he is. It's all about, you can call any play you want because you have studs and stars. If you execute it, it's going to be very few teams in the league that can stop it. And I think you look at Kansas City, their offense, and because they're so in sync with each other, they're doing ring around the rosies in the huddle, and then they're going out and they're having fun. They're having so much fun that they can do things like that. And if the Browns can ever get to a point where they're all in sync and all on the same page with each other, I always say this too: you can be on the same page, but are you reading the same book?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think
the one known difference in this offense. Sorry to cut you off. Make this. This is the first time Deshaun Watson is going to be dealing in an offense where he's not making the old line calls.
Mm-hmm.
So that's him relying on that offensive line to be on point, knowing where to go is going to be key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in the AFC in general, there's more focus on offenses. So, I mean, aside from the AFC North, because we know you guys are just. It's always a physical game whenever AFC North teams play each other. No matter how good or bad these teams are, it's always going to be a physical matchup. But with the more offensive happy leagues in today's game, it's just like, it's going to be a lot easier to get. If you have a more dynamic offense, you're going to have a much easier time. So I feel like Cleveland has had that. So, unless you're going against the NFC South, San Francisco or whoever, you're going to have a better time, or not the South, but NFC East, San Francisco or whoever, you're going to have a good time on offense. So, because really, who in the
defense
AFC
is optional.
Yeah, I was going to say, who in the AFC are you scared of most defensively? Maybe the Jets. I like the Jets defense.
Jets defense. I mean, Baltimore's always tough defense.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is out there always going to be.
Cincinnati's getting, Cincinnati's very underrated as a defense, and they do a nice job against Kansas City. But for some reason, when the Browns play the Bengals, we seem to have we seem to move the ball. Like even when we lost 20-10 last year with Watson, when we went down to Cincinnati, we were moving the ball. We just would get, before halftime, we went for it on 4th and 1, and we overthrew Cooper, whatever like that. Wide was maybe DPG, but we overthrew him wide open. That's a timing issue. I mean, we were moving the ball all over the Bengals. We just couldn't score any points. So for whatever reason, the Bengals don't scare me. The Ravens do. The Steelers always play us tough because of the Steelers. But I look at this Browns team, and defensively, there's nobody that I think that if we don't play our game, they scare me like it used to be. Like the Browns would play games like, these defenses come in and like, well, they're going to shut us down. Actually, I'm more afraid of the Patriots defense against the Browns sometimes because Belichick always has their number. But I'm looking from a personnel standpoint against these defenses in the league, especially the AFC. I'm not too afraid of individual teams' personnel. They may scheme us right from a coaching standpoint, but I look at our team on offense, the Browns. And you play against any defense, I like our chances. I think the 11 players go 11 on 11 with any team. I think we're at least winning 6 of those 11 every time we play somebody.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a hot take, but this is why I'm not high on the Chargers this year, because I'm not a big fan of their defense. Yeah. I mean, say what you want about Kellen Moore. Great. Hope he has success in LA. Was not happy how the season ended. He started having a cookie cutter playbook here in Dallas, and it was just kind of hard to deal with. But I'm more concerned about the Chargers defense than I am their offense, because their defense, they have some issues on that defense. First of all, can Derwin James stay healthy, for Christ's sake?
Yeah, that's the biggest.
That's the biggest thing, is like, can Derwin James play a full 17-game season? If he does, then maybe the Chargers will have something. But that's my biggest gripe with them, is that their defense is suspect. While yes, their offense might keep them in games. I mean, we saw the wild card game. Their defense fell flat against Jacksonville. Not only that, their offense couldn't move the ball at all. So it's like, it's the worst of both worlds at that point. So we saw it firsthand.
Still, Cal Van Noy still a free agent, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they're there's some pieces still floating in the wind that they could sign or re-sign, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. So overall, to get into the defense here, how you feel about your defense headed into this year?
On paper, I love it. Let's see what they let's see if they can execute. I think the biggest thing was I think we were missing leadership. Once Anthony Walker went down, we had a major hole in that on-field leader who communicated everything. Now I think we're good. I think between Darius Smith and Thornhill, I think we got that covered. Thornhill's a huge communicator. From my people back home that I've been talking to, they say he's one of the standouts. He's been one of the standouts defensively in the OTAs, as well as Maurice Hurst. I know his issue was never playing. He plays well when he's on the field. His issue was staying on the field, but defensively, those two guys have been standing out. And excuse me, he's not supposed to be one of our prime D linemen, so I'm liking hearing good things against him. Hopefully, he can push Thompson. He can push Perrion Winfrey, or get like Perrion. It's another guy.
Where did he go to school at, Perrion Winfrey?
I wonder. I had so many high hopes for that guy, especially after his initial draft interview. I'm like, okay, we got somebody bringing that energy, but you got to do something. He's got to step up. But on paper, I like our defense. Obviously, you got Schwartz leading the way. I just need them to execute. Let's see if they can execute now.
Well, I think obviously the biggest upgrade for the Cleveland Browns 2023 defense is going to be their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz. Here's why. Obviously, last year we have a defensive coordinator that I won't even mention his name because I got sick of Twitter always bashing him after every single game, and rightfully so. I think
was one of those people.
Yeah, well, no names, please, but I might have been one of them as well. So you got a guy in our defensive coordinator last year who, depending on, it didn't even matter who the personnel was out there. They were confused. You looked at 2 years ago when we went out to LA and played the Chargers, and they're throwing 80-yard passes to Tom, whatever like that. Just miscommunication, especially with. I love it when safeties don't know what to do. That's not obviously there's a bigger problem, and it starts with the defensive coordinator, because if the safeties don't know what to do, the last line of defense, you really have a messed up communication line with the defense. That's the biggest telltale sign that I saw, and it never got better in the 2 years that Joe Woods, I did say his name, was there. So Schwartz being there also too, I think, forget about the personnel, the size of the player that we brought in for the defensive tackle position. We got some beef, like that commercial in the 1980s with the Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
We got the beef back in Cleveland where it should be. I know the NFL's gotten to more of a passing game with people in space, but if teams could just literally run up the middle, which they did at will against us, then obviously they're going to keep continuing to do that. And we can, and then obviously with JOK and some of our smaller linebackers, and to your point, biggest point, Bobby G, you were absolutely right. When Anthony Walker went down, the whole defense, no leadership there. So I think that having Schwartz, he is your leader. He's going to run this actually a normal defense, one that he ran in Philadelphia when he won the Super Bowl. I think that's a big upgrade. I think Myles Garrett having the complement now with Darius Smith. I think that he's finally has another guy that defenses have to worry about. He won't get maybe he'll still get double teamed, but he won't be triple teamed. Like, a lot of people would always come on. Myles Garrett gets no sacks in the fourth quarter. If you looked at the film, he's got 3 guys on him. I mean, what did you expect? So a lot of that will be, taken away as well. So Myles will be able to get maybe closer to 20, 25 sacks. I want to break the record. I think he can break the record. Let's go, Myles. And then, so, I mean, this defense, and then Thornhill, leader, played at Kansas City, knows how to defend, knows how to actually talk and communication, especially in the safety position. And what's even better is I think finally, my guy from Ohio State, Ward, I think as a cornerback, I haven't heard of any nagging injuries going into the season. So I'm going to just pray that he plays 12 to 14 games. And that'll be a big difference right there.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Hopefully we get more man-to-man.
Yes.
It's like you had that guy as our defensive coordinator. He loves to play zone, but yet you draft 3 corners who excel in man coverage, press man coverage. And it even shows in the numbers. We were one of the worst teams in the league playing zone defense, but in man defense, our secondary was rated in the top 5 in the NFL. Like, let these guys loose.
Do what they do.
Let them put their hands on people. And they all have speed. Emerson. He's probably the slowest of the three. But
He's the
Ward,
most physical, though. He's the most.
yeah, he's a
physical.
4-3 guy. Denzel Ward's a 4-3 guy. Greg Newsome is a low 4-4 guy. Like, let those guys do what they do.
I will say this. First, I have not heard the name Perion Winfrey in a long time, so thank you for reminding me of that.
Freaking
Again,
well, we've heard it too much of him, Alan. Okay.
So yeah, we had the same problem. We gave up so many rushing yards that they were like, "Oh, let's go get the Michigan guy." I mean, I'm not gonna throw out judgment just yet. I'm gonna wait and see what happens with him this year. So, I mean, we obviously they wanted Dalton Kincaid, and Buffalo was like, haha, not today. So that was a big reason why they went with Mozzie Smith at 28. Might be a reach, but who knows what'll happen with that. But yeah, I like that defense. I really do. And I agree with the fact that let him play man to man a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I would watch Denzel Ward back at Ohio State. Anytime they went man press coverage, you're not throwing on him.
No.
You're not going to throw on him. Same thing. It's been like that since he got into the league. So
yeah, it's like the reason we excel at playing the bank, like it's because we actually have guys who can cover the Bengals receivers.
Yeah,
Jamar
that's
Chase
true.
has literally had one okay. He's never had like this Jamar Chase game against the Browns. Like he's had an okay. I think the last game last season where they won 21-10. That was an okay game, but other than that, Denzel took one off and 90 yards to the house. Like we got the guns, the dogs. Let them loose.
These quarterbacks are, and to your point, Bobby G, it's not. It's also about these quarterbacks are too good. You play zone against these quarterbacks. If you don't get any pressure, you can't get pressure without blitzing. They're just going to eat you up. Like you're not really doing any. Now I understand going to mixed zone coverages if you're doing these exotic things that Joe Woods would do, and it wouldn't work anyways because he
you said it.
Yeah, I did say it. I did. I'm guilty. Thanks. So if you are going to do these exotic and blitz, you better make sure that you're on the same communication. And obviously the players weren't. So it was, just like a ship that would always keep leaking, and you fill one spot, and then the leaks over here. And that was the Browns defense the last 2 years. They would go in spurts where there's times where the last 5 games of the year where they look good, but it was just a cover up for a problem that was never solved. And I just think having the stability and the credibility of a Jim Schwartz, because you can actually go back to more traditional defense. And, I look at it this way. In the NFL, it's all about trying to confuse playing chess, not checkers, is what the people on Twitter say. But I always say this. I should be able to tell you what I'm going to run it down your throat. And if I execute the play, I should run it down your throat if I have better players. The Browns have better players now. This isn't 1999 where they have expansion players and they're trying to fill holes with these guys that are, okay, maybe we'll come together as a team. No, we have studs. We have thoroughbreds. We should be able to look at the other team, line up, and just beat teams because we're better at the game of football.
Yeah. And I said, to your point, you say the chess, not checkers things. When people used to say that to me, I'd be like, you know what? I might be playing checkers, but guess what? There's kings and checkers too.
Just
because you're playing a basic game doesn't mean you can't excel.
That's right, and I love that.
I'm actually excited to see that Thornhill Ward combo in that secondary for Cleveland this year. I think that's going to be a fun team to watch defensively. So
and free up Delpit, let him run around and hit people. I want to see him make that huge hit.
And zone defenses, most quarterbacks can, definitely pick apart zone defense well, unless your name is Rain Dakota Prescott. But that's a whole different story in general. But he struggles.
Shots fired.
I don't know why he struggles against zone coverage. He's only had one good game against zone coverage, and that was against Philly at home, and that was only because C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt. So, once Gardner Johnson went down, he started lighting up that, the 3rd and 30, the 50-yard pass to T.Y. Hilton and all that good stuff. It's like that's the only time he did good against zone coverage was that game. So, like, come on, Dak, you can do better than that. I know you're a 4th-round pick, but stop playing like one, for Christ's sake.
Wow, I thought we slandered quarterbacks in Cleveland, but man, they're pretty tough in Dallas.
You were going through a decade of Tony Romo, and now you're on 7 years of Dak Prescott. It's
Alan. You mentioned Do you? I mean, seriously, nobody. That's what. No matter what
I'll take all of those years.
I want to say, and Bobby G, can you back me up on this? No matter what podcast we go on, and throughout the history of our lives, I don't want to hear, no matter what fan base or host, come and say he got quarterback problems. Unless in the nenext couple of years, Deshaun Watson wins 3 Super Bowls, and we can finally say, I don't think there's ever a show I could go on that people have you had it worse than us. Yeah, you haven't.
Yeah.
The
thing they say, one game changed our fortune. Yeah, one game. All they had to do was not beat the Indianapolis Colts, and we would have had the number 1 pick when Andrew Luck came out. But no, they go ahead and they beat the Colts, and we end up with the number 3 pick.
What was that? Trent Richardson that year?
Yeah, that was Trent Richardson.
Oh.
Which we did flip him for a first round pick the next year. But
we did.
Ironically, to the Colts.
Yeah, to the Colts.
Yeah.
Talk about a basket case.
Man.
We're gonna run straight into like 5 guys when there's a wide open gaping hole to the left, and like.
Oh, you noticed that too, Alan. You've been a Cowboys fan.
My 90-year-old grandmother could run through that hole.
Your boy Okie again. You embarrassed by the movie Draft Day?
Yes. Yeah. To answer your question, Okie Packer fan 10, your cousin Alan, is that what you said? Yes. I'm very. When people say, "Oh, that's a Browns movie," no, that reminds me of Johnny Manziel and Hoyer. It's very. If you actually watch that movie,
Brandon Whedon.
It's Khalil Mack.
You're not trading with Seattle, and they're going to trade the picks back. And I know it's Kevin Costner, and he dances with wolves, but he ain't pulling off that trade. I know that.
No. It'd be like Mike Ditka training in his entire draft for Ricky Williams at that point.
Yeah, it's not Major League. Major League is class. Yeah, Major League is class. Yeah. But
we wear sleeves at this level, son. That's one of my favorite sports movies is Major League. So I gotta give it that a shout out. So overall,
bit outside.
It's like, God, this guy hits pretty good. How come nobody picked him up? Okay, throw him a curve.
Pedro Serrano, the legend.
Jiminy Christmas. Oh my God. So how are we feeling about this year's draft class? And I'll throw undrafted rookies in there as well. How are we feeling about this year's draft class?
Well, little BG, he says good. He's feeling good. So if he's feeling good, I'm feeling good. And they actually do like it. The only thing for me is I'm going to very, very closely follow the careers of Cedric Tillman and Tyler Scott. See who pans out better.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I love it. I love Siaki, or as he goes by, Apu. Definitely like that pick, and I like what he's shown so far in OTAs. Hearing good things about him as well. I love I forget his name, but the DB out of Northwestern, Greg Newsom's teammate. He's also been showing
Cameron
some
Mitchell.
signs.
Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah, there you go. I wasn't sure when they picked him, but again, hearing good things of what he's doing in camps. So I'm pleased with the draft class. We were in a weird position where we're kind of the draft. We were just really afforded the luxury of taking BPA with every pick. Yep. But I think they did a really good job combined with the offseason moves, the free agency moves. So
I actually, to Bobby G's point, I loved it. Here's why: because it wasn't like, oh, there's a lot of sexy picks because we didn't have the round when we picked in the what was that, 3rd, 4th round to start with Tillman. And then obviously, but I like what we did because, you get Tillman, you needed that bigger wide receiver. He reminds me like of a Bengals wide receiver back in the, what I'm saying? They're bigger, kind of like a Hushmanzada or a
Hushmanzada. That's a name.
Yeah,
like a guy
or Hines Ward.
Yeah, yes, that's another great example. I like what they did with Siaki because, you needed a big clogger up the middle. Reminds me of what the Ravens would do. So I like that pick. Also I like the picks of the Ohio State University, the Buckeyes of DeWan Jones.
I did like that
Wepler, because
those two.
the kind of projects. But with the Browns offensive line being the way that it is, we can afford, we have the luxury of kind of, letting them learn under Bill Callahan, let them learn under the players that are already there. And maybe next year, then take over, and especially it'll save on some cap space too, because they're on the rookie deals. And the Browns love to pay offensive linemen, but it gets a little expensive, and then you got to change contracts. And then I like what we got Dobbs this year to be the backup, and but we took that kid from UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and here's why I like him. Okay, so I hate offenses that say you got a Deshaun Watson, a dynamic quarterback. Okay, but say you'd have like a Luke McCown, or name and insert any McCown there, you'd have to change your offense. I like teams and to the Ravens, obviously when Lamar Jackson gets hurt and they bring in Tyler Huntley, I like teams that obviously you have a drop off because he's the backup. He's not as good as a starter, but it's the same type of quarterback. Exactly. Like, I'm saying, you don't have to change the playbook. You may be limited, but you don't change it up. You still run the same offense. And I feel like getting this guy, Dorian Robinson or Thompson Robinson, after Dobbs leaves, probably after this year, he came in. Obviously, he's going to be the backup this year, but he ain't going to be there next year. But now I got this cat that's going to have 1 year, be second year, be the backup to Deshaun Watson, and going to know the playbook, going to be able to run the same offense. I like what we could do this year. Get the best player available, like Bobby G said, but also set up the future too. And that's what I think they did with the 2 Ohio State kids. I think they did with the quarterback, and I think even with Cameron Mitchell, the cornerback. Like, he doesn't have to come in. There's no pressure on him to play that much, but to come in, learn under Newsome, learn under Ward. I mean, there's got so many good guys to play under that it's like it's building for the future, and you could do it at a cheap price. So I think Andrew Berry, being the consummate GM that he is, I like him because he's a forward thinker. You got to win next year, but you can't set it. It's not all or nothing. It's hard. There's 32 teams. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. You got to be competitive for the next 3 to 4 years, especially when you got Deshaun Watson. And I think this draft, as small as it is and as condensed as it was, picking only rounds, 3 through 6, 4 through 6, or whatever, like it was. It's like, I think they did their job, and it's smart to see some smart in Berea finally.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to have that GM that can assess the situation and be like, you know what, we have a good solid team. We don't need to get the flashy pick or the flashy player. We don't need to trade up. We don't need to make these kind of moves. Let's get what we can and see what works out. I like Cedric Tillman a lot. Again, I was very high on him coming out, obviously with that high-powered Tennessee offense. He was one of the wide receivers I was looking at, maybe for maybe Dallas could sweep him up if they wanted to maybe have him be like a number 4 at this point in that offense. But he was one of those guys that I was keeping an eye on. I like some of the picks. DeJuan Jones, that's an anomaly to me, because a lot of people actually had him made late first round, early second, in that type of range. The fact that he fell there, that's a big get for Cleveland. I feel. I think that he could end up being a bookend piece in the future for sure.
It could end up being Jedrick Wills or play. I'm telling you, Jed Wills is on the clock.
Yeah.
The time's a ticking, sir. You
got to quit being a turnstile and let everybody past you. You got to block somebody.
They picked up that 5th-year option, but they ain't in contract talks yet. You're on the clock, sir.
Yeah. No, he's just the waiter sitting at the front of the restaurant. It's like, here, let me take your coat, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
Enjoy your sex for the day.
The thing that should let him know is his teammates should let him know. They're who is it? Only one other lineman on our team is drafted. Like everybody, like that should show you how replaceable you are. Conklin signed in free agency. Wyatt Teller, we traded for him.
Yep.
Pochich, undrafted free agent, just coming out of nowhere. Like your team, it's not like we have all these guys that were drafted by the Browns and grew. No.
Yeah, besides Bitonio, basically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Except for Bitonio and Nick Harris.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, bro, we will replace you if you ain't up to par.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And you can get guys that come out of nowhere. Like you said, you get the undrafted guy that comes out of nowhere and becomes a mainstay. I know Lael Collins, when we got him, he was undrafted, but that was because of his off the field antics and whatnot. But he still ended up being a serviceable tackle. You get the right guys in place. Great offensive line coach as well. So definitely, your time's a ticking.
Yeah.
So
he may be an upset Baker, bro. People forget. Jed Wills was in a couple of those Progressive commercials with Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was. And another thing too. So
He's not protecting the home very well, is he?
Which I always thought this too. The at home or progressive. The Guardian Stadium. Is called Progressive Field. It's like Baker could have just moved down the street. It wasn't like Cleveland just threw him up on his butt like that. So we weren't always the harshest to him. We liked him, but he kept throwing it to the team wearing the other jerseys, and you can't have that.
I would say now he's just living on the pirate ship in Tampa Bay, so it'd be fun there.
Good luck to Tampa. Yeah. I just wanted to let you know you're getting a guy that will throw everybody under the bus when it's So I mean, that's the thing, and that's the thing about Baker. And it's like he has all the intangibles and all the stuff the rah-rah and the stuff that you would want, but when things don't go his way, instead he just throws people under the bus. Johnny
never matured.
Yeah, that's right.
The one time I loved his antics was a game against Kansas, when that whole sequence was just that was entertainment, and I loved every second of it. When he's grabbing his crotch on the sideline, he's trying to go in for a handshake at the beginning of the game.
Oh yeah, against the Jayhawks.
All the Kansas players were just like, "No, we're not doing that." And then once they finally get a comfortable enough lead, Baker's just like darting on the sideline, is just like grabbing.
I knew we were in trouble. Not to bring up past indiscretions, because I know he's a college kid at the time, but when he got his little DUI or public intoxication, he couldn't even outrun the cops. About 2 feet, he got caught. It's like, come on.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy. So how are we feeling about 2023? Where is our ceiling and where is our floor here for the Cleveland Browns this year?
Playoffs. I mean, I'm not going to say it. Our ceiling is me going to a Browns game in Las Vegas.
Bobby G, to all the audience out there, because I know I've been talking to you recently, for that to happen, what is that game called again?
No, I'm not saying it. It's the last game of the season, though, and it's here in Las Vegas, and I will be present if the Browns are in that game.
You mean the game with the special halftime? The special halftime game?
Yeah.
All the fancy lights and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's our ceiling. I think our floor is wild card. I think we're in the playoffs. This is a season where, at minimum, we make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the Browns, I'm going to say this, and it's a generic answer, but I think it's an answer that I'm finally, the Browns are to the point in the NFL where I feel like they're a regular NFL franchise. Because if you look, and here's the reason why, I'm keeping it as simplified as possible. When the Green Bay Packers had Aaron Rodgers, their ceiling was always the Super Bowl, correct? I mean, pretty much was. I mean, and then when he got injured or whatever, their floor was 3-13 or 3, you know what I'm saying? Pretty much like,
right.
Okay. So I'm going to say this as easy as possible. With Deshaun Watson, I believe it's a franchise quarterback. Our ceiling is the game with the Roman numerals, the last game of the NFL season. But if he gets hurt, and that's always possible, then our floor would be 3-13 like every other, or 3-14 like every other NFL team. And it's as simple as that. Now, do I think the probability of where we fit in maybe 75%, like to your point, I think 75% is a wild card. We make the playoffs. I think that 80% we win the division. And then I think anything above that is, go to the AFC Championship game or go to the game with the Roman numerals at the end. I think there's a greater chance of us making the playoffs and doing better things than there is not making the playoffs and doing worse things, like being, maybe winning 1, 2, 3, 4 games. So I think the Browns outlook this year is, as a Browns fan, if you're going into it, you'd have to say to yourself, I think they're one of the better teams. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to fathom that because it's the Browns, make jokes. I get it. We've heard it all. But I look at this team and I can't wait till the fall comes and we unleash these weapons on the rest of the National Football League. Mm-hmm. And then we can finally enjoy our Sundays. And it's been quite a long time in Cleveland since we can actually do that in the 2020 year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of people couldn't even do that at the stadium. But I think this will be the year that finally it all comes together. And with the passing of Jim Brown recently, I think maybe we got a little karma our way and Nick Chubb will get more carries and maybe Nick or Stefanski, like I told Bobby G the other day, will say maybe I should give the rock to Nick Chubb because he's thinking about Jim Brown and the patch that'll be on the Browns' shoulders.
Yeah. So the season is set up to be special.
Yes.
I think the ceiling is 12-5. I think it's 12-5 and the AFC North Division title.
Okay.
I think they
That's
could.
fair.
The Bengals have lost a lot in their secondary. I'm not 100% sold on the Ravens quite yet, and I think the Steelers are still got a way to go. So Cleveland can easily take this division. I know they have Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, but still, it's going to be competitive like it always is. I think 12-5 is the ceiling for Cleveland, and I think they can win the AFC North. Florida would probably be about 9-8 and barely, like Bobby G said, barely get that last playoff spot. So I think Cleveland's going to be in regardless. Like I made a prediction the other day. I was like, I think both Cleveland and Pittsburgh are getting in over Baltimore.
Oh,
That's
over
put
Baltimore.
a ticket in on that, because if that ticket were to hit
over Baltimore, over the Chargers, and over Buffalo. I have both the Steelers and the Browns getting in over all three of those teams this year.
you got the Jets winning the AFC East.
I have the Dolphins.
Oh,
And
whoa!
and the Jets are the final wild card. In the middle
Tua
between
stay healthy enough.
in the middle between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, I have the Jets as that middle wild.
What do you have
team.
Buffalo's win total?
9-8,
Oh, wow.
but they finished behind Pittsburgh
Okay.
because I think Kenny Pickett's going to take another step forward this
So
year.
you just predicting a fall off for the Bills.
Wow.
In other words,
Unless they get DeAndre Hopkins, and then I'll be like,
Okay, fine. Let's play a game, guys. Who's getting DeAndre Hopkins?
does anybody have the money right now?
No, that's
the
what
question.
I'm wondering.
He wants $20 million.
I hate to say it, but
Don't say
Kansas
Ravens.
City probably.
Okay, I can live with that.
I can't argue with. I mean, Odell just got 18
I know.
coming off of an ACL, so I kind of can't argue with.
I'm fine
with
as long as it's not the
demands.
Ravens. As long as
I
it's
don't
not
think
the
it'll be the
Ravens.
Ravens.
I was gonna say Kansas City probably is the one that makes the most sense because they. I mean, are you really gonna go into the season with your number one guy being not Mecole Hardman, but Kadarius Toney?
No,
I'm
not.
I mean, he was the number one last year, though.
He was the number one last year, but he did.
Mahomes is.
They got Kelsey.
That's
That's
that
the
realm
thing.
of
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah, their number one
that
receiver
doesn't
is
need the
Travis
number one.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
I'd like to see him go to the Rams, though.
That would be something. That would be cool. I did see somebody's comment the other day, probably Ed, about the Browns having more wins than the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say is when we do have more wins, instead of a masseuse, I would like a chiropractor because I need my lower back fixed.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. All right, so we'll put it out there. We'll put it out there in the universe that I owe you some chiropractic therapy.
Chiropractic, physical therapy, whatever. Oh, man. I'm not even sold on that for Dallas this year.
So what do you think Dallas' win total is then?
The highest 12-5 again.
Okay, so
I think
you already predicted they win the division.
that was a little bit of hyperbole, but I still think they can. It depends on what happens with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It really does. Because, like I said,
if the NFL's caught up with them, it could be a long year.
There are three issues I have with Philly. It's their offensive line is aging. Lane Johnson, you can't trust to be healthy all season because he's probably going to get hurt. I do not like their running backs because, again, history of injuries with both Swift and with Brashad Penny. And I'm not a fan of their safeties. I like their corners. And I was on, Jeremy B's show earlier. He was talking, the whole talk about Big Play Slay is still Big Play Slay. He called him OK Slay at this point. So I'm not scared of Darius Slay. Maybe James Bradbury a little bit, and Keely Ringo coming out of Georgia as well. That might be something that half their team is all Georgia players. How the hell did that happen? But
the G in Eagle stands for Georgia.
Pretty much the Philadelphia Bulldogs, as I like to call them now. So, but yeah, since they lost Garner Johnson to Detroit, I feel like their safeties are a little bit suspect. Those are the three areas I have concern with Philly. And you look at the harder schedule. We have to play the Chargers, whereas they have to play the Chiefs. AFC East. That's going to be a tough road when you go Buffalo, Miami, the Jets, even New England. They open with New England in Foxborough. So Belichick's gonna have like 2 months to prepare for Jalen Hurts. So that's gonna be a tough matchup right out of the gate. And then of course the division. The Giants are gonna be a little bit better. Cowboys aren't gonna go down quietly. Even we saw last year Washington took a game from them last year. So again, it'll all depend on what happens with Philadelphia. If Philadelphia does what they did last year, they're going to win the division. If they fall apart a little bit, I think Dallas can probably steal it. History shows that it's probably going to be Dallas or the Giants this year because nobody's won this division.
I saw the graphic
since 2004. Nobody wants to win this division back-to-back seasons. I don't know why. It just never happens that way.
Well, the Browns haven't won a division since 1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time for that to change. Definitely.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think that'll change at some point soon. It could change this year. Like I said, I think the Browns could be that team that, we talked about, the Jets last year, the Lions last year, the Browns could be that team, only they could actually elevate and be the team that gets into the playoffs. So
I got it. Okay, here's what we'll do. Cowboys, Browns, won't say the name of the game with the Roman numerals. That happens. We're coming out to Bobby G's place and we're going to throw it down. How about that?
There we go.
I will definitely do that for sure. So before we end off, I know you guys did your own show about this. It's been the talk of the NFL world for the last couple of weeks, but the passing of Jim Brown. What in your minds did he make? What did he mean to the game of football in your eyes?
A lot, man. It revolutionized the way running backs move. He was really the first do it all back. And if you look at the backs that came after him, Orenthal James being the highlight. Like Jimmy was the first run around, run through, run by running back. Side he was a massive guy when he played, 6'3", 250, like bigger than the lineman, but also ran a 4.40.
Not bad for a fullback, technically.
Oh, exactly. Just an awesome. Probably one of the greatest athletes, just true athletes of all time. Not even outside of football. Definitely one of the greatest football players of all time. I got him number 2 behind Jerry Rice on that list on just football players. But yeah, he meant everything to the NFL. My only thing is I wish he would have played a couple years longer, like Ed alluded to in our special. Maybe we'd have a Super Bowl if he'd have played a couple years into the Super Bowl era. But definitely.
Well, I think we can talk about his football, everything, because I think he was the best football player ever, and we've gone into exhaustive talks about why that is, and he just was, because he was an athlete. And if you look at the best athletes of all time, all have Northeast Ohio ties. One LeBron James, Jesse Owens, and Jim Brown, and what they had was they were just freak athletes that were just better than other specimens on the planet at the time that they were doing what they were doing. And so talking about Jim Brown, to me, he's more than just that freak athlete, because like I said, best football player ever, period. Okay, we're done with football, but the man, the things that he did, I mean, he was a star. He walked into a room, he commanded the room. He was the first black action superhero. I think he was a great actor. I love the Dirty Dozen. I like the fact that he had the Cleveland Summit with Muhammad Ali when Muhammad Ali was going through his draft status back in the day. And, that summit actually didn't change any opinion. Muhammad Ali still decided to, not go and enter the draft. And so that summit, they talk about, wasn't actually a success when it comes to changing Muhammad Ali's mind about the draft. But what it did show was that black athletes could get together and be a force and be a reckoning when it comes to their social, outputs. And I think Jim Brown, obviously, he was the one that commenced that summit. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's just more of just than a football player. He's just an all-encompassing being when it comes to being the right guy at the right time to get things done socially. And not a man that would go into the streets of Los Angeles and talk to Bloods and Crips and talk about education. a guy that would, deal with, other social problems when it comes to even in Cleveland. A guy that made up with Art Modell after him and Modell got into it and was on the sidelines during the Bill Belichick era in Cleveland. A guy that, was all about principle, didn't speak many words, but he knew where he stood. And I think that's the greatest legacy about Jim Brown. And, my dad, growing up, always told me how great the Cleveland Browns were because, he obviously got to see them in their heyday in the 50s and 60s. But, you never go more than 2 words without saying Jim Brown. Jim Brown. Yeah. If you're a true Cleveland Brown fan, it's the Browns, and the first name and the first word that you usually say after that is Jim Brown. And I think that, it's sad that we lost a great guy, but you know what? To Bobby G's standpoint, there's a reason why. And I think 2023, the reawakening of the Cleveland Browns. And I think good things are going to happen on the lakefront this year.
I said this on a vlog last week. I like to call Jim Brown the patriarch of the NFL because, you can have guys, say stuff about other, legends of this game and how dirty players were back in the day and whatnot and how, this, that, and everything else. There was nobody, or at least from what I've seen, there was nobody who would say stuff like that about Jim Brown. Everybody respected him for what he was as a player, for what he was as a human being. Running backs of all decades, you mentioned, OJ a little bit, Walter Payton as well. Guys like that would go up to Jim Brown for advice, for, how do I do this? How do I do that? Even guys in today's game, when they see Jim Brown, they would always, how do I make myself better? How do I do this? How do I make myself better on the field? Always going to him for advice. And that's why I kind of said he's the patriarch of the NFL because he not only commanded the respect, like Ed said, he earned it. He earned it through not just his play on the field, but for what he did off the field. And every single person would, go up to him and you're like, this is the wisest person to probably get information from is probably Jim Brown because of not only what he had to go through, but in his heyday, but just how he played the game, how he carried himself as, just what he did. And like I said, I think that's the perfect, final moniker for him to have is patriarch of the NFL. And it's sad to see the patriarch pass away because you don't want to see a guy that meant so much to the entire league, not just, one team, the entire league, go away like that. So and I'm sure every team is going to do something for Jim Brown. There's going to be an NFL-wide thing for Jim Brown this year. But if I'm playing Cleveland this year, again, as you guys both mentioned, if I'm playing Cleveland this year, I would be pretty worried because of, that's the spirit of Jim Brown is going to be with the Cleveland Browns this year. And I think this year is definitely going to be a very special year in Cleveland.
Especially that home opener.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's the Bengals. So, yeah, we'll chew on some Tiger meat week 1.
That'll probably be the most emotional day in Cleveland.
Myles Garrett, 3 sacks. I'm counting. I'm booking it.
Mm-hmm. That'll be a very emotional day in Cleveland for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely going to be an emotional day in Cleveland for sure. I like you said, I would not be surprised if you see every player wearing the 32 on their pad, either on their pads or on their helmet all season long to honor Jim Brown. I know. I think it was Ed that said this on your Jim Brown special. They should rename the stadium Jim Brown Stadium
for 1 year.
Either for 1 year or just permanently.
Well, they'll get a sponsor. The thing I would they'll get a sponsor. They want money, but it's called Cleveland Brown Stadium now. But why not call it Jim Brown Stadium this year? And then when you sell out to the corporate sponsors the following year, then you can rename it and then put the 32 at the 50-yard line, like Bobby G said.
I saw
that elf is too creepy anyway.
No, the elf is dope, man. But I saw an interview with Jimmy Haslam. He actually said that had been mentioned, the renaming of the stadium.
I like that.
He didn't say where they go, but he said it had been mentioned.
Yeah, the 32 at the 50 would be awesome. I will say that. If they rename it Jim Brown Stadium for a year and put the 32 in the middle,
exactly.
That would be perfect.
Yeah, get that little creepy elf out of there. Is that what you're saying?
Get the elf out of here, man.
Hey, Brownie's the man.
He's something.
He's something, all right. That's for sure. Guys, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I was really, really looking forward to this show. Like the minute I got done with the show on Monday, I was like, "Who am I gonna?" We're doing Cleveland. I don't care, because that I was gonna say that same night I watched y'all's tribute show to Jim Brown. I was like, I want to get these guys. I don't want to have them talk Cleveland Brown. So I definitely appreciate you. I know, Bobby, you've been on as many shows as me and Scott at this point, and we're all still trying to catch Johnny Cruz. But
there you go. I reserve my spot. He can be the ultimate host. I reserve my spot as the ultimate guest. So
100%, man. Appreciate you guys both coming on. And any last words before we hop off here tonight?
Just shout out to Let's Talk Sports and shout out to my guys Peyton Vince and Casey and Riggs over at We Like Sports Podcast. And I'm glad I got to meet you guys throughout this. And anytime I can tag team with Bobby G, just give me the invite. I'd love to jump on because what's better than having one Browns guy on, but two Browns guys.
There you
go. And we got another Cowboys fan jumping in here at the last minute. Flo, who was on our draft show. The Bottom Line Sports Podcast, they do a good job. Also, Flo was on day 3 of the draft with us, so that was a day. Him and I were both screaming, "Running back, running back, running back, running back!" And then they took Deuce Vaughn. I was like, "Thank you." My God, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been awesome. We'll definitely have to do this again, especially. I don't know if we play the AFC North next year. But
I think so.
If we do, we'll definitely have to do something for like a Browns Cowboys matchup, or again, if they get into the game with the Roman numerals, we'll have to do something for it as well.
Bobby G's going to hosting, yes.
Yeah.
So
that's weird. I'm in the stadium. I don't know if I got to sneak in. I'm in that stadium.
Definitely. Again, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. Definitely check out Let's Talk Sports, the Hardcore Sports Network as well. This has been simulcast on there. And then I always forget the name of it, but the new network that we've been partnering with, I cannot remember the name. I don't know why. It's just like that this started like Sideline Sports. Sideline Sports. Shout out to Sideline Sports. I'm sorry I forgot your name. Please don't kill me. So again, shout out to Dan, of course. Without him, most of us would probably not be in this situation. So
absolutely, get better, brother.
Yep. Definitely get better. We wish you all the best. I think he said he might be back tomorrow, so he might be on some shows tomorrow. So it'd be awesome to have Dan back. So definitely shout out to Dan Harris for all that he does, not just on camera, but behind the scenes as well. He makes this whole network go, and without him, where would we be without Dan Harris, man? It's just the most amazing guy in the world. So I can't say enough good about Dan. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Absolutely. We're going to get on out of here. Thank you to Bobby G. Thank you to Ed in Columbus for joining me tonight. My name is Alan. You can find me on Twitter as well, 8paralysis30. Bobby, where can people find you? What you got going on?
You guys we Fan University Podcast, and coming this fall, the Prove Me Wrong show, which will be brought to you by Let's Talk Sports. Other than that, all my socials, BG_FanU Podcast. Get at me. I love to go back and forth with everybody.
Ed, what you got going on? Where can people find you?
Yeah, find me, like I said, We Like Sports Podcast at Ed in Columbus on Twitter, and you can prove me wrong too anytime. So I like that. I love that. Can't wait for that show, Bobby G. I can't wait to be on it. And everything. But shout out to everybody. Shout out to you guys. And we wouldn't be complete without a Go Browns.
Good go. Dog check.
How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys?
All right, we're gonna head on out of here, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. Love y'all. Stay safe, and we
Happy
hope to
Memorial
see
Day.
you. And happy Memorial Day as well. Thank you
Thank
to
you,
all
veterans.
those who've served. So, again, love you all. Stay safe. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.
Peace.